Commander Darian Wells steadied his breathing as the descent module touched down on the crystalline surface of Nix. 6 years of space travel for this moment, humanity's first official cultural exchange with the Nixians. Atmospheric readings normal, he reported into his comm. Initiating first contact protocol. As the module's door slid open, Darian was bathed in the planet's famous bioluminescent light. The air smelled of cinnamon and sea salt, oddly familiar yet utterly alien. His xenobiology training hadn't prepared him for the emotional impact of standing on another world. The welcoming committee waited at a respectful distance, 5 tall, willowy figures with skin that rippled with colors like living opals. Their 4-chambered eyes blinked in unison, and Darian fought the impulse to stare. "Welcome to Nix, Earth friend," said the tallest figure, stepping forward. Her voice was melodic, each syllable seeming to chime. "I am Thalia, your designated cultural liaison." Darian bowed as instructed in his briefings. "I bring greetings from Earth. Thank you for allowing this exchange." Thalia's skin flickered with blue patterns, amusement, according to his training. "Your pronunciation is impressive for one with only one tongue." "I've practiced extensively," Darian said, then realized she might have been teasing him. Humor would be a good sign. Shared laughter was universal, wasn't it? Thalia gestured for him to follow. The Nixian city sprawled before them, structures that seemed grown rather than built, pulsing with the same bioluminescence as their creators. Unlike the stark utilitarian design of Earth's space colonies, everything here curved and flowed. "You will reside in the visitor's spire," Thalia explained, pointing to a twisting structure that reached toward Nix's 3 moons. "I will be nearby to assist with your integration." As they walked, Darian noticed Thalia's 6-fingered hand occasionally brushing against his arm, a behavior his briefings hadn't mentioned. Each touch left a tingling sensation, like static electricity but pleasant. "Is touching customary in your culture?" he asked, careful to keep his tone curious rather than accusatory. Thalia's colors shifted to a deep purple. "We sense bioenergetic fields through contact. It helps us understand others. Is this uncomfortable for you?" "No," Darian said, surprised to find it was true. "Just unexpected." That evening, after settling into his quarters, a chamber with walls that responded to his moods by changing colors, Darian recorded his initial observations. "The Nixians appear genuinely interested in cultural exchange," he dictated. "Liaison Thalia is particularly attentive." He paused the recording, thinking of how her skin had glimmered when she looked at him. Was that significant, or was he projecting human responses onto alien behaviors? A soft chime indicated someone at his door. When it slid open, Thalia stood there, her skin now a gentle gold. "I thought you might join me for the evening meal," she said. "There is much to share about our worlds." Darian nodded, ignoring the flutter in his chest. This was diplomacy, science, nothing more. As they walked toward the communal eating hall, Thalia's hand brushed his again, and this time he could have sworn he felt a faint echo of her thoughts. Curiosity, anticipation, and something warmer he couldn't name. What had the mission briefing said about Nixian biology? Something about heightened empathic abilities. Nothing to worry about, surely. Behind them, the 3 moons of Nix rose in perfect alignment, an omen the Nixians considered highly auspicious for new beginnings. 3 weeks into his stay on Nix, Darian had filled countless research logs with observations about Nixian culture. What fascinated him most, however, was Thalia. "Our annual luminescence festival begins tomorrow," she told him as they walked through the bioluminescent gardens that evening. Her skin rippled with excited patterns of gold and azure. "Would you honor us by attending as my personal guest?" "I'd be delighted," Darian replied, watching how the light from Nix's moons caught in her iridescent hair. "What does this festival celebrate?" Thalia's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a gesture he'd learned indicated thoughtfulness. "It celebrates connection, unity, the cosmic threads that bind all living things." What Darian didn't notice was the meaningful glance exchanged between Thalia and an elder Nixian tending the gardens. In Nixian culture, inviting an outsider to luminescence was tantamount to declaring serious intentions. The next evening, Darian wore his diplomatic uniform as Thalia led him to a vast crystal amphitheater. Thousands of Nixians gathered there, their collective bioluminescence creating waves of light that took his breath away. "You look appropriate," Thalia said, her skin flushing a rosy pink that Darian had never seen before. She wore an intricate garment that seemed woven from starlight itself. "The ceremony will begin at the moon's zenith." As the three moons aligned overhead, Nixians began a haunting, multi-layered song. Thalia guided Darian to a circular platform at the center. "What happens now?" he whispered, suddenly aware that every Nixian eye was upon them. "We share the essence," Thalia explained, producing a small crystal vial filled with luminous blue liquid. "It is tradition, a symbol of unity between different beings." Darian hesitated. His training emphasized respecting alien customs, but also cautioned against ingesting unknown substances. Yet refusing might cause diplomatic tension after weeks of building trust. "It's perfectly safe for your biology," Thalia assured him, as if sensing his thoughts. "We've studied your species extensively." That was true enough. The Nixians had observed Earth for decades before making contact. Their understanding of human physiology had already helped cure 3 previously incurable diseases. "To unity," Darian said, accepting the vial and taking a small sip. The liquid tasted like honey and starlight if starlight had a flavor. As it slid down his throat, a pleasant warmth spread through his body. Thalia drank next, her eyes never leaving his. The crowd erupted in approving tones, and several elder Nixians approached to place their hands on both Darian and Thalia's shoulders, murmuring rhythmic words. "What are they saying?" Darian asked, feeling strangely lightheaded. "They bless our bond," Thalia said, her voice suddenly seeming to echo inside his mind rather than just his ears. "The first of its kind between our worlds." Something about her phrasing triggered a warning in Darian's scientific mind, but the pleasant sensation from the nectar had intensified, making his thoughts hazy. The crowd's bioluminescence seemed to swirl around them, creating patterns that burned themselves into his memory. "This feels unusual," he managed to say. Thalia's hand found his, and where they touched, both began to glow with the same resonant frequency, visible proof of something changing at the molecular level. "The essence begins its work," she whispered, sounding both awed and nervous. "Sleep will come soon. When you wake, we will be more." As the crowd's singing reached a crescendo, Darian's consciousness began to fade. His last clear thought was a belated realization that cultural exchange might have been more literal than he'd understood. In his quarters later, attended by both human medical staff and Nixian healers, Darian slept deeply while subtle changes reworked the biochemistry of his nervous system. Beside him, Thalia also slumbered, her body pulsing with new patterns that hadn't been seen on Nyx for generations. Neither was aware yet that their cells were exchanging information, creating pathways between 2 evolutionary branches that had developed light years apart. By morning, they would be the first interspecies bonded pair in known galactic history. Darian woke to an unfamiliar sensation, as if part of his consciousness existed outside his body. Opening his eyes, he found Thalia sitting nearby, her skin glowing with patterns he somehow recognized as concern. "What happened?" he asked, his voice hoarse. "The bonding has begun," she said softly. "How do you feel?" Darian tried to catalog his sensations. His vision seemed enhanced, colors more vibrant, with new spectrums he couldn't name. And beneath his own thoughts ran a current of alien emotions, Thalia's. "I can feel you," he said, wonder mixing with alarm. "In my mind." Dr. Cadence Mitchell, the human expedition's medical officer, entered with a Nixian healer. Their expressions couldn't have been more different, the doctors tight with worry, the Nixians luminous with excitement. "Commander Wells, your biochemistry is showing unprecedented alterations," Dr. Mitchell reported. "Neural pathways forming that don't match any human configuration." The Nixian healer, Valerian, nodded enthusiastically. "The sacred bond thrives. Already your neural patterns harmonize." When Dr. Mitchell stepped toward the door, mentioning tests she needed to prepare, Darian felt a sharp, visceral pain. "Wait," he gasped, the discomfort immediately easing when she stopped. "Fascinating," Valerian observed. "The proximity constraint manifests already." "Proximity constraint," Darian repeated. Thalia moved closer, and Darian felt immediate relief. "Our bonded pairs remain physically close, especially during early connection," she explained. It strengthens the neural synchronization. Darian's diplomatic training battled with rising panic. You mean I can't leave your side? For how long? Until the bond matures, Valerian said. Perhaps a lunar cycle. This is unprecedented with your species. Dr. Mitchell's face darkened. This wasn't in any briefing materials. Commander Wells cannot be tethered to an alien being. Earth Command expects his return in 2 weeks. Thalia's skin darkened with distress. Separation now would cause severe trauma to both our systems. Over the next hours, Darian discovered just how literal this was. Any distance beyond 20 feet from Thalia resulted in intensifying pain and disorientation. Even more disturbing, her emotions flowed into him like water finding new channels. Her anxiety when the human delegation argued for his return, her hope when he defended her. That night as they sat in the botanical gardens, the only place both found calming, Darian finally asked the question burning in his mind. Did you know this would happen? Thalia's colors shifted through remorseful blues. I knew bonding was possible, yes, but not its exact nature with a human. Her voice faltered. I felt drawn to you from our first meeting. When you accepted the ceremonial essence, I believed on some level you understood. Darian's anger mixed with an uncomfortable realization. He couldn't entirely blame her. He'd ignored warning signs, swept up in fascination with her world. With her. Your family seems rather pleased, he noted drily, recalling the celebration Thalia's family had organized upon learning of their bond. You are my life bond now, she said simply. In our culture, this is our highest blessing. As if responding to her words, the bond between them pulsed, sending waves of her sincere affection into his consciousness. Despite his rational objections, his body responded to her proximity with a sense of rightness he couldn't explain. Earth won't understand this, he said quietly. Then we must help them understand, Thalia replied, her hand finding his, their skin glowing where they touched. Together. That night they shared dreams for the first time, his childhood memories of Earth's oceans mixing with her experiences of Nyx's crystalline forests. 2 separate evolutionary histories braided together in sleep, creating something entirely new. Absolutely not, Admiral Prescott's holographic projection stated firmly. Commander Wells will return to Earth as scheduled. Our xenobiologists will find a way to sever this connection. Darian stood in the communication chamber, feeling Thalia's distress through their bond though she waited outside. 1 week had passed since the Luminescence Festival, and the bond had only deepened. He could now perceive fragments of her thoughts, not just emotions. With respect, Admiral, premature separation could cause neurological damage to both of us, Darian explained. Medical scans showed his brain had developed entirely new structures, quantum entangled somehow with Thalia's neural network. This was never authorized, Commander. For all we know, this is a sophisticated form of biological espionage. The accusation sent a spike of anger through Darian, or was it Thalia's anger he felt? The lines between them blurred more each day. Request permission to extend my mission, Darian said. To study the bond, this could revolutionize our understanding of xenobiology. After tense negotiations, the Admiral reluctantly granted a 3-month extension, with daily medical reports required. When the transmission ended, Darian found his hands shaking. Outside, Thalia waited, her skin pulsing with anxious patterns. They fear what they don't understand, she said, having sensed the conversation's tone through their connection. That evening, a Nyxian elder named Joreth invited them to his dwelling, a living structure that responded to its inhabitants' needs. The ancient Nyxian's skin had faded to a translucent pearl, marking his extreme age. Your bond troubles you, Earth son, Joreth observed, serving them tea that tasted of stardust and memory. You think it takes your freedom. Doesn't it? Darian asked. I can't even walk to the research lab without Thalia. All connections limit and liberate simultaneously, Joreth said. Even on your world, do bonded pairs not adjust their paths to accommodate each other? Darian considered his parents' 40-year marriage, how they'd built lives that intertwined without either losing themselves. Not quite so literally, he said, but his resistance was weakening. Later, as they walked through Nyx's twilight gardens, Thalia finally asked the question hanging between them. If you could break our bond without harm, would you? The question resonated through their shared consciousness. 3 weeks ago, his answer would have been immediate. Now he hesitated. Before he could answer, Thalia's consciousness opened fully to him for the first time, showing him the bond from her perspective. The profound joy she felt at their connection, the fear that he resented what she treasured, the depths of Nyxian bonding he'd barely glimpsed. "I don't know anymore," he answered honestly. "I didn't choose this, but now." He let her feel his own conflicted emotions, his growing affection, his wonder at experiencing another being's thoughts, balanced against his human need for autonomy and his duty to Earth. That night they slept side by side, the physical proximity now a comfort rather than an imposition. In their shared dreamscape, they walked together through impossible landscapes, half Earth, half Nyx, seeking a path that honored both worlds. When morning came, Darien made a decision. Not complete surrender to the Nyxian way, nor stubborn insistence on human independence, but something new. A third path that might bridge their worlds just as their bond bridged their minds. 3 months later, the diplomatic chamber aboard the Earth vessel Hyperion hosted an unprecedented gathering. On one side stood Admiral Prescott and the human diplomatic corps. On the other, the Nyxian High Council, their skin shimmering with formal patterns. Between these two powers stood Darien and Thalia, physically transformed by their deepening bond. Thalia's formerly opalescent skin now contained hints of human pigmentation. Darien's eyes had developed subtle Nyxian characteristics, catching light in ways no human eyes had before. "We propose a new classification of diplomatic relationship," Darien announced, his voice steady despite the momentous nature of the occasion. "The bonded ambassadorship." Through carefully managed research and unprecedented cooperation between human and Nyxian scientists, they had stabilized their bond into something sustainable. They could now separate for up to 12 hours without distress, enough for independent diplomatic functions while maintaining their connection. "We represent something neither world anticipated," Thalia continued, her mastery of English now perfect through their shared consciousness. "A living bridge between species." Admiral Prescott frowned. "Commander Wells, are you certain this is what you want? The commitment is extensive." Darien smiled, feeling Thalia's reassurance flowing through their bond. "It's not what I expected when I volunteered for this mission, Admiral, but some discoveries change the explorer as much as they change our understanding of the universe." The formal agreement drafted that day established the first permanent human presence on Nyx, a small diplomatic compound where Darien would serve as Earth's ambassador. In return, Thalia would make regular visits to Earth, her unique physiology protected by adaptations from their bond. That evening, under the light of Nyx's 3 moons, they participated in a ceremony that honored both human and Nyxian traditions. Darien's parents watched via quantum transmission from Earth, their initial shock having gradually given way to cautious acceptance. "You've chosen an unconventional path," his mother had told him during a private conversation. "But then, you always did." As they stood together beneath Nyx's stars, Darien felt the final barriers between their minds dissolving, not into sameness, but into harmony. Distinct melodies creating a richer song together than either could alone. "What do you think the future holds for us?" he asked, both aloud and through their bond. Thalia's skin glowed with the pattern he now recognized as joy. "Something neither of our worlds has imagined yet," she replied. "That's what makes it worth exploring." Above them, a ship departed for Earth, carrying the first samples of technologies developed through their unique partnership. Medical advances that utilized the bioluminescent properties of Nyxian biology, adapted for human physiology through insights only their bond could provide. And in the botanical gardens nearby, a new plant had begun to grow, neither purely Earth nor purely Nyxian, but a hybrid that thrived under both suns. The botanists called it Ambassador's Bloom, its flowers opening to reveal patterns that mirrored the neural pathways now connecting two beings from different worlds. "We are not just two anymore," Thalia said, her consciousness brushing his like a caress. "Nor are we entirely one. We are the space between stars, the connection that makes the universe whole." Darien smiled, no longer afraid of what he'd become. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them as neither human nor Nyxian alone could, but as something gloriously, improbably new.